podcast. We're going to be right back.
This is Henry from New York, and I listen to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with my homie Decal.
All right, so come right back to this. Now, I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I didn't watch it. I just didn't care. Now, I did listen to it on the radio because I happened to be in my car while I was doing some driving. But ultimately, I really wasn't tripping off the Super Bowl this year. I just wasn't. So there seems to be a new powerhouse that's moving into the e-commerce world. I don't know if you guys have seen the commercials I'm talking about, but I read the article today that competition is supposed to bring out the best in everybody, right? That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to compete, and it's supposed to bring out the good in you. It's supposed to bring out the better in your competition, and it's supposed to make everything better. Especially when it comes to business, the competition is supposed to be better for the consumer. Well, it depends on what the competition is. Well, there's a new competition. Well, I shouldn't say new competition, but apparently during the Super Bowl, there was a new competitor to let the world know in e-commerce. There's a new big boy in town. And it looks like they have been making some noise. Temu. I believe how you pronounce it. Temu or Temu. Again, I didn't see the commercial, so I don't know how they phonetically said it. But it's Temu. And they are an online e-commerce that's very similar to your Amazon, very similar to your Walmart. You can kind of say eBay-ish. And their tagline is, "You shop like a billionaire," where they have a whole array of different products that you will find at sincerely discounted prices. So I was on there, and you can get, I don't know, sundresses and shirts and t-shirts. A lot of it looks like under $15. And compared to some of the other e-commerce that we tend to shop on a regular basis, the prices tend to be a little bit less. Now, it is, I believe I read it was based out of Boston, and it's very similar to another e-commerce that's in China. I believe I read somewhere like 900 million users. So do you think this is good with driving the prices with some of the other e-commerce companies out there, like I mentioned earlier? Do you think this is good? Do you think this is bad? I know in the spirit of things, it's supposed to be good, because it gives the consumer a multitude of avenues of where they can shop at. But do you now feel that this is going to potentially hurt and drive the price? Or should I say, potentially hurt or drive down the quality of some of the products that are existing right now on the market? I personally think it's a great thing, especially with the way cost of living is going and the price of eggs and milk alone is going to run you a full tank of gas. So, what do you feel this is going to do? So I think that's interesting. Like I said, if you have your own business, you have another avenue you can possibly, like Etsy, you have another option for you to go to that many people don't know about. In some cases, the fact that competition is unaware of this is better, because you kind of jump in the market before it becomes this commercial oversaturate the way things go. I think, like I said, it's a good problem to have. Depending on how they do it, perform it, set it up, market it, depending who gets involved with it, who buys it, who tries to slander it. But, when you're in the world of billionaires, boy, that the rules are a little bit different, right? They tend to do certain antics and that can hurt a business. And I mean, for the love of free enterprise. But what say you guys? Go ahead and leave a comment on the social media or on the YouTube page or anything of that nature and kind of let us know what you feel about that. Temu. Check it out. Free plug for them, right? Normally I don't really plug outside of my own, but at the same time, it's free game. So the next thing I want to bring up on the podcast that I was talking about, I saw a billboard, and on this billboard, it was promoting about gun safety. And on this billboard, it had a picture of a pistol, and it had a locking mechanism going through the pistol, and it was promoting gun safety to prevent suicides, right? And it had a whole little tagline to it. Basically, the whole premise was to, do more to hide your guns, to protect your guns, to store your guns so that way teenagers, young people, kids don't get their hands on it and harm themselves because the rates of suicide by handguns have, exponentially skyrocketed. And then I saw another billboard which was basically promoting psychiatric mental health for those of us who are just completely overworked and overstressed and having a hard time coping because, again, the rise of suicides, for the rise of everybody with mental exhaustion. And then I began to think to myself, I said, so I don't really think these people see the problem that's right in front of their faces. And the problem is not only the ignorance and poor maintenance and supervision of handguns and responsibility of handguns, because last episode we talked about the Rusk incident in New Mexico, but the main problem isn't I need medication for my mental stress, or not me specifically, but just people in general. They don't necessarily need therapy, even though therapy is a good problem to have. I have friends I went to school with who become therapists, and they're killing it. But the problem isn't, in my opinion, that so many people need it. The problem is so many people need it. That's the biggest issue. And so the solution, in my opinion, isn't the medication that you need to take, or the psychiatric help that you need to go seek after, or the fact that we need to do all these extra steps to make sure that the problem has been created. And I know that's being vague, and some people aren't really getting it. Sharp people are, other people, they're creating all these problems for people to have. You're creating this workload. You're creating this cost of living. You're creating this struggle with finances. You're creating these issues with the food. You're creating this mass of transportation and congestion in cities. You're creating greed with the wrong people. Have created this monster to where And I'm not going to sit back and say this is accidental. I'm going to sit back and say that this is negligent, where you create the problem. And when I say you're creating, and hopefully everyone who's sharp understands who I'm talking about, they create the problem. And then when they see the problem is continuously growing, well, then they create the solution, which then it creates another problem. And when the second problem becomes so goddamn big, they create a solution for that, which creates a third problem someplace else. And so you're constantly putting out these fires, but when you put out said fire, the brush from that fire goes someplace else. The wind carries it, right? The momentum from you putting it out spreads to someplace else, and then that brush catches fire. What these fires that is creating are also very profitable, because the issues that the thing that they're creating is generating so much money that they can no longer stop it. So they're trying to put out a fire here, which is also creating. Living in California, one of the issues that we have is homelessness. And I know a lot of people who are outside of California, they believe their news resources and their social medias or just their own flat out opinion about what's causing the situation here in California to be homeless. This is something that just one government official cannot fix, ladies and gentlemen. And the government officials are so far away from the reality of us on this side of the tax bracket, they don't know how to fix the problem because they're not looking at the reasons. If they look at the reason, in my opinion, they're going to understand we're fucking up the economy by doing these things over here. Now, let's look at it from this perspective. They do understand. They do recognize it. They do acknowledge it. But if they stop it, look how many jobs they're going to take away from the economy by addressing one problem over here. I always use this example when I'm having a conversation with somebody. And I say this. Let's say you have someone who is a drug dealer. Just follow me. And this drug dealer makes a boatload of money, right? Pharmaceutical company, boatload of money. And the pharmaceutical company are selling what they're selling. We all know what they're selling. And it has the side effects in which it has the side effects. But you can't get rid of the pharmaceutical company because the amount of money that they're generating is creating these jobs. Now, I'm going to struggle with this word, and I always do. These subsidiaries, maybe I didn't struggle with it this time, of the pharmaceutical company have created donations to colleges. They've created donations to these after-school programs. They've donated money to the charities that help with cancer research. They've put money in different places that we want the money to go to. So if we take away this problem that we see is creating for the world, well, the funding for the school, the funding for the cancer research, the funding for the, everything I just mentioned, well, that money goes away, right? So if I'm this big time, whatever in the economy, and my one problem and my one product is creating 3 issues in society, but I'm also making contributions to these 5 things over here. Like I said, shelters for the dogs, and research for this, and I created a school over here, and I'm created this platform over here. And if you get rid of what I'm doing for the 3 issues, the 4 businesses that I'm funding goes away. So we're now are in a situation where this one problem is also funding these 5 good things. That's a dilemma that a lot of us don't really choose to look at. And that's a problem I feel that the government understands. And they have to balance it out for the betterment of the economy. And it's a very dangerous game, right? Because we need the medication for the mental illness because we're stressed out with working all these hours and the cost of living is going up. The price of food is going up. The pay ain't going up necessarily because profitability, got to keep the economy going, all this other fun shit. But you and I are spending $300 on 2 cartons of eggs and a gallon of milk and to fill a tank up in the car, while at the same time we're stressed out. Your significant other isn't getting the time. Your kids are being raised by YouTube. Do we really necessarily want to take a look at what the problem is? Because it might be something we really don't want to get into. That might be a bigger issue. And here's what I mean by a bigger issue. Getting into my second topic that I want to talk about here in the podcast, the E.I.T.H.R podcast, is this. Many people, and I've said this before, they want to talk the walk, but they don't necessarily want to walk the talk. If you guys remember the movie, The Dark Knight, it was the Batman movie where Heath Ledger played the Joker. So we're going to fast forward in this film. And it was the film where the 2 ferry boats were transported. One boat had a bunch of citizens and business people. The other ferry boat had a bunch of convicts that were going from point A to point B. And the boat engine just stopped. And then you have the Joker talk about he was going to play a game. Each boat had the adapter, had the remote, had the trigger to the other boat's bomb. So the citizens had the bomb, had the remote detonator to the bomb on the convict's boat, and the convicts had the trigger detonator to the bomb on the civilian's boat. And the Joker said if by midnight no one's made a decision, he was going to make the decision for everybody. So it was a matter of who wants to win. Well, there was one gentleman on the citizens' boat, and I always bring this example up to people who've seen the movie. My man stood up and was leading the charge at the civilians. Like, hey, now we ought to talk this through. I mean, he was amping everybody up, and he was, give me the remote, I'll do it. And he took the remote control. I mean, he was Mr. Billy Badass. He got the detonator, and he sat down with it. He put his hand on the key. And you can tell he was one of these people where he talks his walk, but he doesn't walk his talk. He wanted to do it until he is in a situation where he was now going to do it. So you can tell in the scene, he really didn't want to do it now that he knew what it felt like, right? Everybody can perform better than the person performing that's in the audience. But the moment you put their ass on stage and lights on them, they get stage fright, right? Everyone knows this. You've seen the cartoons and the examples all the time. You get the 2 dogs who are separated by the fence and they're barking and their tails are straight and they're baring teeth and they're growling and snarling at each other. And the moment that gate is removed or that glass removed, both dogs are calm, licking their faces. They don't want to look at each other no more. I don't want to do it, man. I'm cool, man. I'm good. And we always liken this thing to people on social media. But the moment you put that glass back down and you close that gate, they're back at barking and growling at each other again. That's what a lot of us tend to be like when it comes to making changes that are uncomfortable. Because we think we know what we want until we are in a position, this is what I do want. And then you're not willing to take that step because the reality is right in front of you. Like, okay, well, go ahead and make your move. Do it then. Lead by example. Take charge. And this is why I very seldomly ever deal with people who, as Marshawn Lynch once said, man, about that action, boss. About that action. So if you're truly not about what you say, then you shouldn't say it because people are going to be expecting you to walk it. And now when you get to a situation where people know you're not going to walk what you say, you lose points and you lose accountability and you lose credibility. And no one trusts you. So then you become around a bunch of people who just bark and don't bite. Then you put yourself in a situation where when someone finally bites, you don't know what to do because you wasn't expecting that to happen. And now you can't accept the consequences that come with that. So, tying it back to the first comp that we talked about, when it comes to, do we really want things to happen? Because if we truly do, then we have to accept the consequences that comes with that. Right? So, if you do want to start taking more, you could say, holistic medicine, more natural medicine, if you do tend to take foods that are better for your digestive system, better for your skin, better for your eyesight, natural foods, your fruits, your hydration fruits, your acidic fruits, your vegetables, if you choose to go that route, you have to understand it's going to be a little bit of a different lifestyle for you. Now, me personally, I am attempting to do a fruit cleanse. So until Saturday of this coming week, I'm eating primarily hydration fruits. No acidic fruit, but more hydration fruit. And I'm truly trying to minimize on any of my meat consumption. Now, it's very difficult because it's the very first time I've ever tried it. So today I had myself a salad and I put some salmon in the salad. Granted, it's not a fruit, right? But I did have a greens. But I did that because I wanted I'm trying to baby step this thing into it. But I also understand that a lot of the food that I have consumed over the years of my life, this shit isn't healthy. All the preservatives inside of it, all the additives inside of them. I saw a video today of a woman who had French fries from McDonald's. What was it in this video? 19 years in this box, man. And the fries looked like they'd been left out overnight. The burger, the bread wasn't breaking it wasn't breaking apart. There was no mold on the bread. There was no mold on the meat. McDonald's in a wrapper. This is the shit that we're putting in our body. It kind of just made me say to myself, damn, right? Now, I understand that you have, your pro-vegan, and I understand you have your pro-carnivore. I'm not going to bash one. I'm not going to bash the other. Whichever one is what for you is for you, right? I just feel to my vegan peoples, the ones that I have encountered tend to be extremely judgmental on some of us who eat meat. And anyone who's listening to this right now is probably saying to yourself, well, I'd rather eat the plant versus killing an animal because you don't want that on your conscience and it's not the right thing to do, and it makes all the sense. But you have to understand, if you're vegan, you're eating the food that the animal eats. So if you're consuming more leafy foods, you're eating the leaves that these animals may rely on to survive. So in some cases, ipso facto, I'm being tongue in cheek, you're starving the animal that you're trying to save by eating its food to save it. Doesn't make any sense. Right? Because even in the wild, when nature takes its course, survival happens. I think the difference is when you do that to an animal to survive versus doing that for mass processing. Okay, there is a difference in the why you're doing it. This is very much true. And I feel a lot of the food that we eat isn't necessarily for the betterment of people. I think a lot of the food that we're eating, it's for the profitability of businesses. Why do you think healthier food is so damn expensive? Because the food that they want you to eat and manufacture is so much more profitable. But someone once told me, though, if you eat cheap, it's going to cost you more later on down the line. For its medical bills, hospital bills, health, so on and so forth, right? So going back into this, you have to understand that the actions that you take will have an effect on you one way or another. You just need to think it through. So if you choose to make the commitment, do your best to stick with the commitment, but also more importantly, understand the side effects and the consequences of those actions. Just like anything else in life, man. But I'm not with people who judge those who do certain things. Again, I'm talking about judging for the betterment of. But what I do judge is, why do so many people talk so tough about doing something, but when it comes to taking action on those things, nobody wants to do anything about that? That's my biggest issue, right? We want to make these biggest changes. We want to make these changes in our lives. We want to make these changes in our communities. We want to make these changes in our neighborhood. We want to make these changes for our culture. We want to make these changes for all these different reasons. And we're upset. And we're perfect. What are you doing to make that change? First of all, what are you doing within yourself? Because if you're not following your own actions, how do you expect for somebody else to follow your lead? So are you doing it, first and foremost? If the answer is yes, okay, show me how it works. If the answer is no, why is it good for the goose but not for the gander? Right? If you're an individual who is telling people what they need to do to make money, okay, I'm with you. Are you doing it? No, I ain't doing it. Okay, so it's good enough for me to do, but it's not good enough for you to try out. Those people I get annoyed with. I don't care if your attempt isn't yielding results yet. Are you doing it? The answer is yes. Perfect. Now people need to see some type of progress. I remember in the movie Malcolm X, played by Denzel Washington back in 1995, when somebody was attacked by police and Malcolm went to the scene where it happened. Everybody's telling him, the details of what it was. And somebody said, well, what are you going to do? You'll rap a little. But he's a Muslim. And then somebody once said, in a video, someone said, and Muslims only defend other Muslims. Meaning, you guys only take care of your own. You don't take care of anyone that's not one of you. And when you see Malcolm marched with the brothers to the police station to get answers from the police station. And it was such a powerful scene because it was very peaceful. It was very non-threatening. I'm sure they felt threatened, but there was no threatening. Everyone was organized. Everyone was in unison. Once he got the information, they walked to the hospital. And he and his fellow brothers went to the hospital, and the people followed. Why? Because they saw somebody who was walking the talk. He talked to the chief of police. He's having a conversation with the chief of police. The doctor comes out, gives him the information in which he was satisfied by. He turned around, made the hand gesture, did the point. The Muslims left. And the police officer said, well, what about the rest of these people? He's like, those are your problem if that man is not taken care of. We didn't bring them here. They followed us here. So they are going to follow our lead. I love that scene because people, if you walk your talk, they will follow. You just have to understand. Sometimes you can't be the leader of the group, but you can be the leaders of others by following those who are taking you in the right direction. Keep in mind, it may not be the direction you would take to get to that. It might not be the path you would take to get you in the direction. It might not be your way. But understand, I said earlier, there's more than one way to get to an intersection. So because someone's not going the route that I want to go does not necessarily mean I'm not going to pay attention to them. They're just taking a street, they're taking a back road, they're taking a highway that I wouldn't take. But are we going to the same place? Sure. Again, I can learn something on this path that I may possibly have never known on the path that I was going to take. So peep the scenery and understand it may not be what you think it should be, but it's going to get you to where you ultimately want to go. So with depression and this gun control and these mental illnesses and these suicidal numbers and rates and everything, the problem, in my opinion, is not necessarily medication. It's not pill popping. It's not high preservative food. It's not processed meat. It's not any of these things that they're trying to sell us something to buy, to sell us something to buy. They're selling us the solution after they sold us the problem. The late George Carlin once said, the one thing they cannot stand is a educated society. I want to use the term woke, but today's world has made that term seem very derogatory. But you need to be aware of whatever it is that you want may not be what you're used to. And that's how you get something different. What's the definition of insanity? All right, then. Listen, this is your boy D-Cal hosting the E.I.T.H.R podcast. We will be back again for episode number 80. Again, shout out to GNS ETV. Shout out to SDH Entertainment. We're going to be bringing you guys some work soon. It's your boy D-Cal, the E.I.T.H.R podcast. Follow us, Instagram, Twitter. We out. Y'all be good.